Can we record?
I'm recording, so you can do it too. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what's going on, everybody? As stated, I'm Davidovich. We're Davidovich Stone Law Group now, but close enough. I am a real estate landlord, tenant, and construction attorney. That's what we do. We represent only landlords. We are on Team Landlord. Not that there's anything wrong with tenants, but you got to pick a team. That's the team we picked. So the way I like to do this is I'll tell you a little bit about what maybe the latest nonsense that the city is doing, and then we could just jump right into your questions. Generally speaking, that's the best and funnest and actually most informative part of the talk whenever I do it. So, latest nonsense is the right to counsel form. So now, in the city of LA, they passed a right to counsel law. That means whenever a tenant is involved in a UD, that stands for unlawful detainer, that's the fancy name for an eviction, they have a right to get a lawyer. And they can go and get a lawyer basically for free. And the city is funding a lot of it. There are already 16 different agencies whose sole purpose is to terrorize landlords, both large and small. And so that number is growing all the time. And so now you have to tell the tenants where they can go and get terrorist services for free. And the brilliant city decided, okay, we're going to publish this in 9 different languages, English, Spanish, and then 7 other languages. And 2 Chinese, not just 1, 2 Chinese, Mandarin and Cantonese. And they said, well, what happens if the primary language of your tenant is not one of those 9? They say, then you have to give them all 9 translations. Because before they were just going to have 1 they didn't understand. Now they'll have 9 they don't understand. Brilliant. But that is the stupid law that they made. And now if you don't give the right to counsel law, that right to counsel notice at the time you give a notice to quit, at the time you do a new lease, if you don't put it up in your building next to the other nonsense that they make you put up, all of that acts as a defense to an unlawful detainer, to any unlawful detainer. So it's just something to be aware of, and every 6 months, every year, they add some new nonsense. The purpose of the nonsense is really just to make it more and more difficult for landlords to be in the business and to evict people, and it just makes it more and more cumbersome to get tenants who are not doing what they're supposed to do out of units. And so you should just be aware of that. I tell people all the time who are, these may be some of your clients. Some of your clients may not be in the real estate business, and they say, oh, well, my uncle started purchasing property in LA 50 years ago, and he made a lot of money on it. I'm going to go be a landlord in LA. Well, 50 years ago, you could be a landlord in LA as a side hustle. That could be your side gig. You could do a full-time job and be a landlord in LA, and it was fairly easy, right? Fix a toilet, sign a new lease, guy doesn't pay the rent, he's out in 30 days. So it used to be like something you could play like amateur badminton, something you do on the weekend. Being a landlord in LA is now full contact NFL professional football with no pads. That's what it is. And you have, instead of 11 guys versus 11 guys, you have 3 handicapped blockers and they have 27 people coming at you. That's the sport that we are playing now. It is not a side hustle anymore. It is not for people who are looking to make a couple bucks on the side. Not in this city, not in this county. You want to go do that in Texas or Missouri or Idaho? Okay, fine. But you should tell people, and I tell people this all the time. This is like the big boy leagues. Don't play if you're not ready to get hurt. So. No. First of all, this is nothing to do with commercial. Commercial, you still have a lot more rights as a commercial landlord. You're still basically in charge. No, I'm talking about any residential, period. Period. Single family home, condos, townhouses, Outhouses, barns, ADUs, I don't care. If a human being lives in it, they get all these notices. It's really crazy.
Is it better to have like a property management handle that so you can get their services, their attorney, so you don't have to deal with all that?
Yes, always. I mean, if you're going to venture into this very dangerous swamp, definitely have a property manager. The problem is, the good property managers don't want to take a duplex by itself. They're looking for a guy that owns 100 units. Yeah, you'll find like newer property managers, other people who are just like someone might be getting into the owner business, you know, just getting a little bit. There are guys getting to the property management business who maybe just started, who will take pretty much anybody, right? And I actually have a couple clients who will take nicer single-family homes to manage. So it does depend, but it is a little bit harder to get a property manager when you don't have a lot of units. On top of which, it's also somewhat challenging to get a property manager that knows what they're doing. Just like I teach you guys this right now, and you probably didn't know any of this, I have to teach all the property managers all the time, right? I spend a lot of time, and my job is just to try and keep up with these rules. And remember, there are 88 cities in the LA County. About 20 of them have their own little rules, and they're all a little different.
And this is effective 8/1?
This is effective technically 8/20. That's what the city of LA says. They published the forms about a week and a half ago. Said you have a month to get compliant.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's really crazy.
But then who's going to go look at the property and say, all right, did you post this thing, you know, like?
No one is going to enforce it, sort of, you know, in a vacuum. This really only comes up in the middle of an eviction, and so they have all of these different affirmative defenses, they're called. In other words, the tenants council is going to come and say, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you post the RSO notice? Did you post the JCO notice? Did you give me security deposit interest? And now they have another tool. Did you post the right to counsel form? Did you do it in the primary language? Did you give it to the tenant and also post it in the building? Yeah.
So why are they protecting the renter and not the landlord?
It's very simple. How many tenants are voters and how many landlords are voters? If you're a politician and you don't mind being a scumbag, then the best way to keep on getting elected is to give stuff away for free and to be on team tenant and make sure that landlords have a difficult time and tenants have a theoretically easier time. That's why they push rent control. Pushing rent control actually increases rents. And they don't tell anybody that. This is not subject to debate. This is a scientific fact. Places with rent control have the highest rent increases. What city has had, pop quiz, what city has had rent control for the longest in America?
Hollywood.
Nope.
New York.
New York City, 1945 approximately, right? What city has the highest rent increases over that time? New York City, right? Look at all the other cities. They just allow developers to build. Supply goes like this, or supply goes like this. Demand stays relatively stable. Higher supply, stable demand, lower prices. It's very simple math. But they don't care because rent control sounds nice, so they sell it to all of the voters. And they just don't understand that's how you end up with 100-year-old crumbling buildings that no one wants to put any money into. They don't care. The politics doesn't support it. And it's very difficult to teach voters mathematics when they're voting with their feelings.
With your expertise as a lawyer, and
Yeah.
you're the best one to know all of the nuances, is there a way to, as a landlord, to kind of bypass all of these or to protect yourself?
I mean, no, there's no way to get around the rules. So in other words, if you're implying, can I put something in my lease that says the tenant waives all rent control and LA Municipal Code rights when they rent from me here? Yeah, if that was a thing, I wouldn't need a job. You know, I wouldn't have a job because then we would just put that in leases and everything would just be honky-dory. But unfortunately, you can't do that. You can't waive any of the rights that are given by the city. You can't waive any of the rights that are for public policy reasons that are given by the state. even if you write it down, even if the tenant says, I want to sign this, even if the tenant, you get 15 people to witness the tenant signing it on video with a notarization, and the tenant says, I very much want to rent this property with no rights whatsoever. They could do all of that and then come and say, sorry, that waiver is not enforceable. Now I want my rights. It's just not waivable. It's a babying society where they don't allow you to contract freely. That's what we're dealing with. That's what this state is, that's what this city is. Just so you guys understand. And so that you can advise your clients. Now, if a lot of your clients are just people who are buying and selling, they really don't really get involved in a lot of this. But some people get this idea in the back of their head, oh, I'm gonna buy this house, I'm gonna build an ADU, I'm gonna be a landlord. Hold up. Before you go down that road, think about it, get educated. And then maybe it's a fine thing to do. But I just know a lot of people who end up in very nightmarish situations. Now, if you're gonna go down the road anyway, have my card, you call me, we'll protect you as much as we can, right? But there is no real protecting you against the psychomagnet. The psychomagnet is pretty much this city. This city attracts an unreasonable amount of people with mental deficiencies. And a lot of them are the people who rent from my clients. And it is, you can't get around them. It just is what it is. Yeah, question.
I have a two-part question.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking, you're just speaking from my heart.
Uh-huh.
We own my parents' house and their apartment
Where?
in Hollywood.
Okay.
That's why I said
It's a
Hollywood.
condo?
There's a 4-unit, 1-bedroom apartment, and there's a house right next to it
On the same parcel?
on the same parcel.
Yeah.
So when somebody doesn't pay rent,
Yeah.
okay, how long can you kick them out if they don't pay rent?
Can you? Theoretically, yes. But the question is, I think really the inside question is, how long does it take and how much does it cost? Is it possible to do? So, a couple of myths. People say it's impossible to kick people out in LA. Not true. We do it all the time. Is it easy? No, it's not. It's challenging. It takes a long time, and if you run into someone who goes out and gets one of these free lawyers, it can be expensive. Sometimes it can also be very cheap. A lot of the times we'll do the 3-day notices, and we'll file the UDs, and they'll just default. They just won't answer. And then it's fairly simple. You still got to wait a long time for the sheriff to come do the lockout, but you're in and out. If in a no default, we call that an uncontested eviction, right? You're in and out for about $1,500. That's one extreme. The other extreme is they go out and get a lawyer and they act like this is, Custer's last stand and this is the Alamo, and they're not leaving until the sheriff pulls them out kicking and screaming. And then it's discovery and motions and trials and then jury trials. You're allowed a jury trial in an eviction. A lot of people don't know that. And when I tell the landlord that, they're like, what do you mean a jury trial? This is like a small claims case.
If they're not paying rent and they haven't paid rent,
Because they have,
to live free?
I agree with you, preaching to the choir. But that's what most people don't realize, is that there are a panoply of defenses that the law makes available to tenants, which allows them to get out of an eviction. It doesn't mean that the tenant is going to live there for free forever. If they win an eviction on a technicality, it's almost always something you can fix. So in other words, you didn't give the right to counsel notice, all right, we start again. We give the notice, we give the 3-day notice again, we fix it. Sometimes you got to fix it twice. You have a rent control property, you didn't know it's rent control, right? So you didn't give your security deposit interest. A lot of people don't know that. You have to give security deposit interest on any rent control property in the city of LA. So how much was the security deposit interest? Like $15? Doesn't matter. Could be $1, could be 50 cents. You didn't give it to them? That's a defense. So you go and you do it and you fix it. So eventually, whoever it is, if they're not paying rent, they're going to get kicked out. That's no question. Nobody lives for free. It's a question of how long it takes and how much money it costs. And a lot of the times, if you run into that one bad person, it can end up costing you a lot of money.
My other question
Yeah.
is, when you rent it and you ask like how many people are going to live in there, and then
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden you find out there's like 3 or 4, there are more people, you rented it to 2 people, now
Right.
there's 4 people.
Right.
What rights do you have as a landlord?
So it's a very good question. Generally speaking, according to LA rent control, and again, I just want to make something very clear. When I say LA rent control, what I mean is the City of Los Angeles's Los Angeles Rent Stabilization Ordinance. And a lot of people really don't understand this, and I happen to find this handy dandy map right behind me. Everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to point something out. These are a bunch of, it says here, it's a little bit misleading, it says Council of Governments. And you see here in the orange it says like Santa Monica. Okay, but then over here it says Brentwood and Pacific Palisades. These are not separate cities, at least not all of them. Okay? You sound like you know, but like a lot of people get flummoxed by this.
I made that map. I got
Oh.
that's my map.
Right, cool. So, Santa Monica is its own city within LA County. Beverly Hills is its own city. West Hollywood is its own city. Culver City is its own city. But West LA is actually part of Los Angeles. Westwood, Bel Air, Brentwood, Pacific Palisades, these are Venice, part of Marina Del Rey, is all part of the city of Los Angeles. So if your property is there, it is either subject to the rent stabilization ordinance, but if not, it's subject to the just cause eviction ordinance. We'll talk about what those differences right now. If you're not in the city of LA, you're either in one of these other cities, or you're in what's called the unincorporated part of LA County. So the way I try and explain it is it's like this. The county is like a pizza, and the cities are like pieces of pepperoni on the pizza. Right? If you're in a pepperoni, you are subject to the laws of just your pepperoni. So if the house is in Burbank, then it's subject to Burbank's laws. If the house is in Beverly Hills, it's subject to Beverly Hills' laws. And the biggest pepperoni on the pizza is the city of LA, which is different than the county. Now, if you're not in a pepperoni, if you're somewhere on the cheese in between all the pepperonis, you are in the unincorporated part of LA County, in which case you are subject to the LA County RSO, which is a wholly separate rent stabilization ordinance than any of the other ones that apply to the city. But you can only be in one or the other, for the most part. There are some emergency ordinances that the county will pass, and they'll say this applies in and outside, both on the pepperonis and on the cheese. It's really only in emergencies. For the most part, you're either on a pepperoni or you're in the cheese. And if you're on neither, it means you're not in the county. It means you're in San Bernardino or Riverside or Orange, and that's a whole different ballgame. That's actually just a different pizza. Clear? Okay. Next question. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm asking all the questions.
No, hey, go ahead.
Are the rules the same for apartments and houses if they're on the same parcel?
Nope.
They're not.
Well, if they're on the same parcel, maybe. So let's take your example, right? Okay. You have a single family home and 4 units, all of which are on the same parcel. They're all on the same APN, right? Okay. You might have thought that the single family home is a single family home and the single family home rules apply there and the apartment building rules apply there. That's not true. The way it works is if you have just one dwelling unit on the property, it's a one dwelling unit. It's a single family home, right? Because there's really no other way to have just one dwelling unit on one parcel other than it being a single family home. It's impossible. A condo, even though it has its own APN, is not a single family home. And if you have, like you have, a single family home plus a 4 unit, or even a second unit, a single family home plus an ADU, that's not a single family home anymore. Now that's essentially a duplex.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And if you have 2 ADUs, it's a triplex?
Basically, yes. So what happens is, now you want to know, all right, I'm in the city of LA, I have what you have, and is my property rent control? Now you have to go into, those properties might have been built at different times. So let's say, this might happen more often to some of your customers. They have a single family home. Now single family homes are exempt from the rent stabilization ordinance. If you have a true single family home, you are not part of the LA RSO. You are part of the JCO, which we'll talk about in a second. let's say you take that single-family home that was built before October 1st, 1978, that's the deadline, and you put an ADU on it, brand new, C of O from 2025. Now what do you have? You have an ADU that is not subject to the RSO. Your single-family home, if you rent it, is subject to the RSO. They're separate.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. You have a single-family home that is not in the RSO. That's how you start. Now I take the backyard and I build an ADU on it. I have a unit here and I have a unit here. While I'm living in the single-family home, nothing's changed, right? I'm living in it, I'm not renting it. The ADU has a C of O, that's Certificate of Occupancy, which is after October 1st, 1978. That's another exemption from the RSO. Again, we're just talking about the City of LA's RSO. You jump the ship to Santa Monica, Culver City, unincorporated, that date is different. So we're just talking about LA right now because we're at Keller Williams Hollywood, so we'll talk about Hollywood. Now, the ADU has a brand new C of O, which means it cannot be subject to rent control, regardless of how many units are on the parcel. But the single-family home has a C of O from 1945. Well, is it a single-family home anymore? No, there are 2 dwelling units on the parcel. Is the C of O from before October 1st, 1978? Yes, it is. So the second you put that single-family home on the rental market, it is now rent control. Whether you register it or not, you have to register it. But even if you don't, whoever rents it has rent control rights. Meanwhile, the person in the ADU does not. Same parcel, neighbors.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, well, it's not cool because the guy from the single-family home didn't know that he was turning his single-family home to rent control when he built the ADU. It's not like the city actually tells you that. It usually comes as a big surprise to most people who do that. Again, if you're living in it, doesn't matter. But as soon as you decide, you know what, I'm going to move up, now, ooh, I have a duplex, I can rent out my duplex, people are surprised to find that now, when they rent out their single-family home, all of a sudden they have a rent control unit that they did not bargain for. In your case, I imagine the single-family home is a very old C of O, and your 4 units is also before October 1st, 1978. So,
The house is 100 years old. and
Yeah.
The apartment was 1946.
so all 5 units are subject to the RSO. So it's no different than you having a 5-plex.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, with this, the way it is now, and where you say it's gonna be coming up, do you see an angle there where myself as an agent
Yeah.
could market to apartments, to market to those renting in apartments, as we used to do, to really become homeowners? You know, I'm looking for a way, what angle can I use now based on the information that you have?
For
that I
apartment,
can use for renters to really think about buying a house?
I think the reason most renters don't buy houses is because they can't afford it.
Well, you know what
It's not because they don't want to.
There's a lot of programs available now that can really help them with down payments and other things, so, right?
So, number one, I think you just answered your own question. If you come to your average apartment renter in the city and say, how come you don't own a condo, or how come you don't own a house, they'll probably say, well, do you have money for the down payment? So if you can answer that objection, if you can say, hey, are you a veteran? We'll get you something from, you know, the Veterans Affairs. Are you disabled? We'll get you something from here. If you really, really know about all of those financing programs, sell the financing program. You have an in-house finance person, and then you can also make connections with people who really specialize in those specialty financing things. So let's say you wanted to market, we'll take the veterans, right? Go to places where veterans hang out. Go to veterans events. You can say, I know a guy who does veteran financing. I now have a bunch of veterans, so I can match this financing to these people who might not know that they can actually afford a unit. Now that I tell people, I can meet that objection, now let's go find you a place to live. And so whatever those financing programs are, learn about them, find people who provide them, and then go market to those people who hang out in those groups. Because there's nobody who doesn't I don't think there are a lot of people who are sitting there going, I have the money, I have the means, I have the credit, I'm just going to keep renting because I don't want to be an owner. I don't find that to be a majority of the people. Yeah, are there a couple of guys who listen to the finance, talking heads on LinkedIn who say that owning a house is a bad investment? Sure, there's a couple of people like that. Or there's a couple of people who are just transient, and for them there's no point in owning a home. If you're a traveling musician and you're in Taylor Swift's band 364 days of the year, yeah, maybe there's no point in you paying a mortgage. But that's not the vast majority of people. The vast majority of the people don't own because they think they can't afford to. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
So anything after 1978 is not subject to RSO?
Maybe. So generally speaking, if you have a C of O that's after October 1st, 1978, you're probably not subject to the RSO. Now, there are some buildings where there are exceptions. Number one is, do you guys know what an Ellis Act is? Kind of getting into the legal nerdisms right now. So let's say you have a 3-unit apartment building on a very nice lot. So it's 3 units that was built in the early 1900s when they didn't really maximize density. And so it's a nice 15,000 square foot lot with 3 units on it and a completely unused backyard. You want to demolish this building and build something great. 20 units with density bonuses and all the bells and whistles. Fantastic. The people who live there, who are paying way under market rent, don't want to leave. And in order for you to build the big 20-unit building, the 3-unit building has to not be there anymore. And in order to demolish it, there can't be any people in there, because demolishing buildings with people still inside them is bad. It's murder. Don't do it. So, you need to get them out. Do you have a right to kick them out? The answer is yes, you do. There's a state law called the Ellis Act. And the Ellis Act allows you to kick out all the people who are already month to month, and in order to demolish the building. It also allows you to just take the building off the rental market. So let's say you don't want to demolish it, you just want to have all your kids live in the building for free. Let's say you just don't want to be a landlord anymore and you want to turn your 3-unit apartment building into your own personal pinball arcade and museum. Fantastic. You can do that if you want to. You just have to keep it off the market for 5 years. But most people do it because they want to demolish and rebuild. So you can kick everyone out and say, you got to go. There's a whole process. We help do that. You got to pay relocation. Sometimes the relocation can be quite expensive if they're low-income people. But point is, theoretically, it is feasible to demolish the building. Let's say the building was rent control. The new building that you put up, unless you get it exempted by giving away 20% of the total new units as low income of some kind, affordable, unless you do that, the new building will be rent control when you rent it. It doesn't mean you have to rent it for the old rents. You can put it on the market and rent it for market. But as soon as a renter comes in, you have to treat it as if it was rent control. Now, the C of O of that building is going to say 2025 on it. But this is one of those exceptions where you can have a C of O for a brand new building, but it's still going to be subject to rent control because the building it replaced was rent control. And so even though the old one was only 3 units and this one is 20, the whole building gets rent controlled. So you have to check. It's not enough to just say, I'm checking the C of O after October 1st, 78, not rent control. Not 100% true. Question?
To get those tenants out, would you just do like a 30-day notice?
No. It's far more complicated than that.
So,
Yeah, there's a whole procedure you have to do. You file documents with the city. They have to approve them. It starts out with a 120-day notice. Anyone who's 62 or over, disabled, can extend that up to a year. Then if you're going to do construction, they get to stay until 6 months before construction begins. It's a whole procedure, and it's quite complex. Point is that it's possible, which is good because it's a very, very valuable right. And the terrorists and socialists are consistently trying to take away that right. But it is the right to do that, which makes it possible to redevelop the city and take old, bad housing stock that desperately needs to be put out of its misery and build new, safer, nicer housing stock and more of it. Because a lot of the old apartments are just underutilized in terms of their density. They're not very tall. They don't use all the land, right? And that's because you didn't have to back then. I mean, if you look outside your window, all you see is land. And when everyone came to Los Angeles, you know, you could go to the valley and buy acres and acres and acres for pennies. People used to, the entire Sherman Oaks, when General Sherman sold it, he owned the entire Sherman Oaks neighborhood. Do you know how much he sold it for early 1920s? $800,000. Made a killing. For him, that was a huge profit. Now you can't even buy a nice condo in Sherman Oaks for $800,000. But you could buy acres, and in the city too, acres in the 20s and 30s. There was no reason to build up. You could just build out. But now land is at a premium. So you have to be able to take advantage of density bonuses and take advantage of a smaller piece of land that you can build higher and wider on and more dense. The only way to do that is to get rid of the garbage that doesn't work anymore. So that's why Ellis is really so valuable. And a city, by the way, is not allowed to impede that. So a city cannot pass a law that says, we don't want Ellis in our city. Doesn't work. It's a state law. You have to implement it. And you can't say, for example, in our city, the notice is going to be 9 months, extended up to 2 years. Can't do that. You're not allowed to mess with the numbers. So it's very important, and it's a really important part of the state laws, the state rights that still go to landlords while we have them. So, any other questions?
What are
Yeah.
the protections that a landlord can have when a leasee defaults and they don't pay for maybe a year?
Well, you don't let them not pay for a year. You know, you call me, and we start the eviction quickly. Now, a lot of the times you want to work with the tenant, you don't want to do an eviction, fine, you want to give them a month, 2 months to maybe get caught up, no problem. I understand that. I'm a landlord myself. You don't want to just be in the eviction business. That's not why you bought the property. But once it gets to 2 months or 3 months, they're not going to pay you. They have a problem. They either went crazy, or they lost their job, or an investment went bad, or their business went bad. They don't have the money. 95% of situations where they don't pay you is because they don't have the money. So what you need to do is get your unit back as quickly as and cheaply as possible so you can rent to someone who does have money. That's the goal. Possession. Yeah.
On the rent control, which is in Hollywood, our property, it is under rent control.
Yeah.
What's the percentage that every year you can raise the rent?
So it changes every year. This year it's 3%. 3%. You get to add 1% if you pay for the gas and another 1% if you pay for the electric. I do not mean the gas and the electric for the central water heater and the electric for the common area lights. I mean if you pay for the gas and electric for that tenant's unit because you have a master metered gas or you have master metered electricity. If they do not pay for those two utilities, you can add 1% for each.
What if it's only one of them?
It's fine.
Not the gas they pay, but the water we pay.
Water, it does not play. So water doesn't play. It's either gas or electric. And you could do one or both.
I think we pay the electric.
You pay the electric, you get to do 3% plus 1.
So 4%.
Yeah. And it changes every year. So you have to be mindful. Yeah, because like last year it was 4%. Anyway, I think that's probably all my time. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I have some cards. Okay, great. And
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Very informative.
no problem.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.